Reading through the Bible in a year, December 21st, 2 Chronicles 25, Revelation 12, Zechariah 8, and John chapter 11. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jehoaddan of Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the sight of Yahweh, yet not with his whole heart. Now it happened, as soon as the kingdom was strong in his grasp, that he killed his servants who had struck down the king his father. But he did not put their sons to death, but did as is written in the law in the book of Moses, which Yahweh commanded, saying, Fathers shall not be put to death for their sons, nor sons be put to death for their fathers, but each shall be put to death for his own sin. Moreover, Amaziah assembled Judah and appointed them according to their fathers' households under the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds throughout Judah and Benjamin. And he took a census of those from 20 years old and upward, and found them to be 300,000 choice men, able to go out for military duty, able to handle spear and large shield. And he hired also 100,000 mighty men of valor out of Israel for 100 talents of silver. But a man of God came to him, saying, O king, do not let the army of Israel go with you, for Yahweh is not with Israel, nor with any of the sons of Ephraim. But if you do go, do it. Be strong for the battle. Yet God will cause you to stumble before the enemy, for God has power to help and to cause to stumble. Then Amaziah said to the man of God, But what shall we do for the 100 talents which I have given for the troops of Israel? And the man of God answered, Yahweh has much more to give you than this. Then Amaziah dismissed them and the troops which came to him from Ephraim to go home. So their anger burned against Judah, and they returned home in burning anger. Now Amaziah strengthened himself and led his people forth. And they went to the valley of Salt and struck down 10,000 of the sons of Seir. The sons of Judah also captured 10,000 alive and brought them to the top of the cliff and threw them down from the top of the cliff, so that they were all split open. But the troops whom Amaziah sent back from going with him to battle raided the cities of Judah from Samaria to Beth-horon and struck down 3,000 of them and plundered much plunder. Now it happened that after Amaziah came from striking down the Edomites, he brought the gods of the sons of Seir and set them up as his own gods and worshipped them and burned incense to them. Why? You just conquered these people. These gods couldn't save these people, so now you're going to worship these same... Why? Verse 15. Then the anger of Yahweh burned against Amaziah, and he sent him a prophet who said to him, Why have you sought the gods of people who have not delivered their own people from your hand? Now it happened to him while he was speaking with him, that the king said to him, Have we given you to be royal counselor? Stop. Why should you be struck down? And the prophet stopped and said, I know that God has counseled to destroy you, because you have done this and have not listened to my counsel. Then Amaziah, king of Judah, took counsel and sent to Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, the king of Israel, saying, Come, let us face each other. And Joash, the king of Israel, sent to Amaziah, king of Judah, saying, the thorn bush, which was in Lebanon, sent to the cedar, which was in Lebanon, saying, Give your daughter to my son for a wife. But a beast of the field that was in Lebanon passed by and trampled that thorn bush. You said, Behold, you have struck down Edom, and your heart has lifted you up to boast. Now stay at home, for why should you provoke calamity so that even you would fall, and Judah with you? But Amaziah would not listen, for it was from God, that he might give them into the hand of Joash, because they sought the gods of Edom. So Joash, king of Israel, went up, and he and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth-shemesh, which belonged to Judah. And Judah was defeated by Israel. And they fled each to his tent. Then Joash, the king of Israel, seized Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, at Beth-shemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and broke down the wall of Jerusalem, from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, 400 cubits, This is merely to shame him. And he took all the gold and silver and all the utensils which were found in the house of God with Obed-Edom, and the treasures of the king's house, and the hostages also, and returned to Samaria. And Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, lived 15 years after the death of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. Now, the rest of the acts of Amaziah, from the first to the last, behold, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? Now, from the time that Amaziah turned away from following Yahweh, they conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent after him to Lachish, and put him to death there. Then they carried him on horses and buried him with his fathers in the city of Judah. Remember Lachish. It's a large, important city in Judah, basically second only to Jerusalem. This is important. It comes up later. And that is all the notes to here. Let's move on to Revelation chapter 12. And a great sign appeared in heaven. Once again, read the notes. They're very good. A woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems or crowns. And his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven, and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that there she would be nourished for 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven, Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon. The dragon and his angels waged war, and they were not strong enough, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, he who accuses them before our God day and night. They overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their witness, and they did not love their life even to death. For this reason, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he only has a short time. When the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place, where she was nourished for a time, times, and half a time, from the presence of the serpent. And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with a flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened up its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth. So the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her seed, who keep the commandments of God and have the witness of Jesus. Now Zechariah chapter 8. Then the word of Yahweh of hosts came, saying, Thus says Yahweh of hosts, I am jealous with great jealousy for Zion, and with great wrath I am jealous for her. Thus says Yahweh, I will return to Zion, and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of Yahweh of hosts will be called the holy mountain. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, old men and old women will again sit in the streets of Jerusalem, each man with his staff in his hand because of age. And the streets of the city will be filled with boys and girls playing in its streets. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, if it is too difficult in the sight of the remnant of this people in those days, will it also be too difficult in my sight? Declares Yahweh of hosts. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, behold, I am going to save my people from the land where the sun rises and from the land where the sun sets. And I will bring them back, and they will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God in truth and righteousness. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, let your hands be strong, you who are listening in these days to the words of to these words from the mouth of the prophets, those who spoke in the day that the foundation of the house of Yahweh of hosts was laid, to the end that the temple might be built. For before those days, there was no wage for man or any wage for animal. And for him who went out or came in, there was no peace because the adversary. And I set all men one against another. But now, I will not treat the remnant of this people as in the former days, declares Yahweh of hosts. For there will be peace for the seed. The vine will yield its fruit, the land will yield its produce, and the heavens will give their due. And I will cause the remnant of this people to inherit all these things. And it will be that just as you were a curse among the nations, O house of Judah and house of Israel, so I will save you, so that you will become a blessing. Do not fear, let your hands be strong. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, just as I purposed to bring about evil to you when your fathers provoked me to wrath, says Yahweh of hosts, and I have not relented. So I have again purposed in these days to do good to Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Do not fear. These are the things you should do. Speak the truth to one another. Judge with truth, and judgment for peace in your gates. Starting over, judge with truth and judgment for peace in your gates. Also, let none of you devise evil in your heart against another, and do not love false oaths, for all these are what I hate, declares Yahweh. Then the word of Yahweh of hosts came to me, saying, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the fast of the 4th, and the fast of the 5th, and the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th months will become joy, gladness, and merry appointed feasts for the house of Judah. So love, truth, and peace. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, it will be that peoples will come, even the inhabitants of many cities. The inhabitants of one will go to another, saying, let us go at once to entreat the favor of Yahweh, and to seek Yahweh of hosts. I will also go. So many peoples and mighty nations will come to seek Yahweh of hosts in Jerusalem, and to entreat the favor of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, in those days 10 men from every tongue of the nations will take hold of the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Now John chapter 11. Now a certain man was sick, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. And it was the Mary who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. So the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. But when Jesus heard this, he said, this sickness is not to end in death, but it is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified by it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was sick, he then stayed 2 days in the place where he was. He didn't get up and run right away. Then after this, he said to his disciples, let us go to Judea again. And the disciples said to him, Rabbi, so the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and are you going there again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. He said these things, and after that he said to them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go so that I may awaken him. This is from whence the Christian euphemism for death comes from, that people have fallen asleep. Well, the disciples then said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will be saved from his sickness. Now, Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought he was speaking of actual, regular sleep. So Jesus then said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Therefore Thomas, who is called Didymus, also meaning the twin, said to his fellow disciples, Let us go also, so that we may die with him. This was possible sarcasm. We don't know. Verse 17. So when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Why is this important? There was a Jewish myth that the spirit stays near the body for about 3-ish days, give or take. And when someone is 4 days dead, there's nothing that can be done for them. That's a Jewish myth that was popular at the time. Now, Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 15 stadia away. 1.7 or 2.7 kilometers. Not far at all. About 3 to 4 miles. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. Martha, therefore, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Martha then said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise again. Martha said, I know that he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die, ever. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord. I have believed that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who comes into the world. When she said this, she went away and called Mary, her sister, saying secretly, The teacher is here and is calling for you. When she heard it, she got up quickly and was coming to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. Then the Jews who were with her in the house were consoling her. When they saw that Mary rose up quickly and went out, they followed her, thinking she was going to the tomb to cry there. Therefore, when Mary came where Jesus was, she saw him and fell at his feet, saying, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus therefore saw her crying, and the Jews who came with her also crying, he was deeply moved in his spirit and was troubled, and said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. So the Jews were saying, See how he loved him. But some of them said, Could not this man, who opened the eyes of the blind man, have kept this man also from dying? So Jesus, again, being deeply moved within, came to the tomb. Now it was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. And Jesus said, Remove the stone. Martha, the sister of the deceased, said to him, Lord, by this time he smells, or in the King James, he stinketh, for he has been dead 4 days. And Jesus said to her, Did I not say to you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they removed the stone. Then Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. This is past tense. This prayer isn't for anybody else. It's only isn't between him and God. It's for everyone else so they can hear it. And I knew that you always hear me, but because of the crowd standing around, I said this, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. The man who had died came forth, bound hand and foot with wrappings, and his face was wrapped around with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Therefore, many of the Jews who came to Mary and saw what he had done believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them the things which Jesus had done. Therefore, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the Sanhedrin. This is it's the group of the ruling class of the Jews. Basically, they grabbed everyone and brought them together so they can have this discussion. And they were saying, what are we doing? For this man is doing many signs. If we let him go on like this, all will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. They're worried about losing their political power. But one of them, Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all, nor do you take into account that it is better for you that one man should die for the people than that the whole nation not perish." Now, he did not say this of himself or from himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus was going to die for the nation, and not for the nation only, but in order that he might also gather together into one the children of God who are scattered abroad. So from that day on, they planned together to kill him. Therefore, Jesus no longer continued to walk openly among the Jews, but went away from there to the region near the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there he stayed with his disciples. Now the Passover of the Jews was near, and many went up to Jerusalem from the region before the Passover to purify themselves. So they were all seeking Jesus, and were saying to one another as they stood in the temple, What do you think? That he will not come to the feast at all? Now the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that if anyone knew where he was to report it, so that they might seize him. And that is all the reading and all the notes for today. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.